Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land. I am your host and sports director, Brian Nelson, and with me I have...
the one and only Andy Anders, your assistant sports editor.
And you have the assistant sports director, Claude Audrey.
The one and only.
And what's good? It's your boy, the sports editor, Griffin Stewart.
The one and only.
Griffin Stewart, Griffey Stewart.
I'm gonna never let you live that one down, bro.
I mean, it wasn't
just
even.
keep calling you
It's not even
Stewart.
his to live down. It's the Rutgers staff that
I
made
don't
the
know why.
mistake.
You just look like a Griffin Stewart, bro.
Probably because he looks like Stewie from Family Guy.
I'm weak.
Not sure about that.
All right. Well, we got a lot of...
back.
We are back, Griffin. Thank you very much. You know what? You can go do
And
the
we're
topics.
back.
And we're back with another piping hot podcast from your boys down at the Ohio State University.
Piping dirty.
I'm
Slum
Griffin
podcast.
Stewart.
What are we going to talk about today, guys? What are we talking about?
Let's start it off with Kerry Coombs.
Kerry Coombs.
Yep.
Okay.
Anyone
Who
want
is that?
Who's that guy?
Who's that guy? I've never heard
Kerry
of him.
Coombs lives off of Red Bull, and I don't know what else. He's probably just Red Bull, honestly.
Probably.
Red Bull is
He
his
looks like just a natural
breakfast,
energy guy.
lunch, and dinner. He's going to bring a great energy to the Ohio State team, as we saw for the 6 seasons he was here previously. Khalid and I were discussing before the pod. We think he probably retires at Ohio State now, and they might actually have some stability from a quality defensive coordinator.
Real
which
quick,
is,
I don't know if you even told him who Kerry Coombs is. If you people who don't know who he
for
is.
those of you who don't know, who are watching a podcast about Ohio State sports, we're probably big-time Ohio State football
Well,
fans.
don't gatekeep Ohio State sports.
Don't
And who
gatekeep.
watches this podcast, okay?
All right. Kerry Coombs was just hired as the defensive coordinator for Ohio State and secondary coach by Ryan Day. Kerry Coombs was the secondary coach for the Tennessee Titans previously. Before that, he spent 6 years as Ohio State's cornerbacks coach. He, like Khalid and I were just saying, he's a high-energy guy who I think provides a lot of stability for Ryan Day.
Yeah.
Kerry Coombs did a fantastic job when he was here previously. And after
not
gaining
only at
some-
recruiting but developing.
Yes, both. And now has some NFL experience under his belt. This will be his first coordinator role. So interested to see how the schematics play out. But he did have a slight hand in that later in his Ohio State career the last time he was here. He'll be full defensive coordinator. Greg Madison is still co-defensive coordinator. So a little bit of name changing in the roles there, but I imagine it'll work the same way.
Yeah.
He'll coordinate the back end. Madison will coordinate the front end. Madison and Hafley did. But some stability now because I think Combs is likely to retire at Ohio State as defensive coordinator. Hasn't really shown to be a head coaching prospect, and he's 57 years old, I believe, as we've brought up.
Yep.
So, I think
Even if he
a
excels
lot of
to the
stability there,
highest level.
which is rare to find, both a coach that's going to be there for a long time and a coach that's that quality in today's landscape of college football.
Yeah,
And it's funny that Khalid brings up recruiting because, as a matter of fact, Kerry Coombs recruited 6 of the Ohio State defensive backs that are currently in the program. So, you're looking at it and you're like, wow, some of these guys have had 3 different secondary coaches in 3 years. But it's like, oh, they actually are going to end up with the same guy that brought them in the first place. So that has to feel pretty good for guys like Sean Wade, Sevin Banks, Amir Reep, especially as a couple of those guys might be going into their first season being full-time starters, having that guy that they initially thought was going to be there in their corner from the get-go.
Speaking of Sean Wade, he had to have known that Kerry Coombs was coming back before he made a decision to officially return.
I mean,
to Ohio State. So
we were talking about that, and we speculated that was the case even before the hiring was official. Because you don't turn down being a first-round draft pick without some certainty.
no, I think he probably hit up
It was just a matter
Kerry
of...
Coombs and text and was like, hey.
Well, I mean, Ryan Day couldn't officially hire Combs until the Titans lost or either won the Super Bowl, and now that the Titans lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, it's open season.
Right, Combs had to make the announcement on his own time, and that's actually something we've seen in the past from him is that, some coaches, whenever they get a new job, want to announce it as quickly as possible, and nothing against them who do, to get that jump on it, like Hafley did. He wanted to be stated at BC as quickly as possible so that he could get on the recruiting trails and such. But Combs comes off as fiercely loyal to me, and I think that this is something he did when he was at Ohio State. A lot of people knew he was probably gone at his last season at Ohio State, but he waited until after the year to announce it.
Yeah. One thing that I feel like the reason why this is going to be a big hire is not only because they're filling a key position in the coaching staff, but also recruiting. You have a guy right now who hasn't signed early in Cameron Martinez, who is a huge piece for the secondary for this recruiting class, but just a piece overall because they lost a guy like Clark Phillips and Jeffrey Okuda to the draft and Damon Arnett. So the secondary position is looking kind of slim, and you have a very talented guy like Cameron Martinez who was hesitant to sign early, specifically because he didn't know who his coach was going to be. And for a guy who played so many positions, his biggest question mark was, who's going to be developing me at a position that I haven't primarily had experience in? And Ohio State had no answer for that. So now that they can finally say, hey, Coach Kerry Coombs is your coach. He's developed this many guys. This is what he's done. He's coming from the NFL, which you probably want to get to at one point. I think this hiring, officially being announced, unofficially, gets Cameron Martinez to sign on to this 2020 class.
It's possible, definitely, because there is finally a guy in that position now. It's not a question mark anymore.
Yeah.
But did you want to say something else about that? Because I was going to switch gears.
No, I wasn't gonna. I had something else related to Combs, but
yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's just kind of interesting to see the assistant coaching hires this go around for Ryan Day as opposed to last year, because last year you saw him bring a bunch of guys that Al Washington does have Ohio State ties because his dad played for Ohio State and whatnot, but none of those guys, he brought all those guys in from the outside, right? He brought in Greg Madison, he brought in Jeff Hafley, Mike Yurisich, a lot of guys with an outside perspective. And then this go around, he kind of wanted to have guys that keep it in the family, so to say, as he had Corey Dennis literally in the family with that one, Urban Meyer's son-in-law, promoting him from just being
quality control.
Urban Meyer's son-in-law?
Yep.
Why have I never known? This is crazy.
I don't know.
I think
gotta do your research, man.
That's wild.
Not to discredit Corey Dennis in any way, but I think that's also the least important position on the coaching staff because Day has a huge hand in developing the quarterbacks anyway.
He said as much too in that one press conference.
So I think that that's a good position for Dennis to get his feet wet as far as a college assistant's role.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't been an assistant before.
Yeah. I don't know. The way I view it is Day brought in a lot of outside help because, like, Hafley, he brought in a lot of other coaches. And I think that was because, like, it was his first year. He wanted to surround himself with as many people that could help him as much as possible. Now that he's had that 1 year where he made it to the college football playoff semifinals, I think
don't want to change it.
And he doesn't want to really change the formula. He wants to bring in people who are familiar with the program so he can pick up right where he left off with Justin Fields and a now Chase Young-less defense, and you want some stability with your defense moving forward, especially if you're looking to contend for a national championship next year.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's the biggest reason why he kept the guys in-house and just promoted within the programs. Yeah, if you go, what was it, 13-0? And, well, before your loss to Clemson.
13-0.
Yeah, there's not much you should want to change because think about it, the risk of bringing in a different quarterback coach who may have different philosophies and techniques that could kind of screw with your with Justin Fields' progression in the system. So it was kind of smart to promote Corey Dennis because you have a young guy who's probably looking for more experience. He's been in the program for how many years? 5 years? So might as well give him an expanded role, even though you're still going to have your fingerprints all over that quarterback room. And then bringing in Kerry Coombs, it just kind of was like a perfect fitting. I feel like if you're a coach, like you were saying, I think Kerry Coombs will probably retire here simply because if you've been in the NFL for 2 years and you're coming right back to the school that you just left from, that probably tells you the NFL is probably not your fit. You're probably at a point in your career where you want to develop. You have more satisfaction of developing younger guys and turning them into professionals rather than just getting the best out of your professional athletes. I don't see him leaving anytime soon. I think Kerry Coombs was a great hire for Ohio State, but it kind of was perfect timing for both.
Yeah.
He's always been an Ohio guy in the first place, and he was tremendous at recruiting Ohio, specifically when he was here in the past. We've talked about stability a lot, and stability is obviously important when you're talking about a program that had a great season this past season.
Right.
I know that loss to a lot of fans, that Clemson loss, was really heartbreaking. But, I mean, think about what the team achieved this year. 13-0 wins to open a new head coach's tenure, beat the rival, beat Wisconsin for a Big Ten title, make the college football playoff. We were very competitive in a game that would have sent you to a national championship.
I'll go ahead and say I think this team was the best team to not win the title over that 2015 team.
Or 1969, as a lot of fans would bring up. Or even 1996 and 90. There's a lot of teams that were great and didn't win a title for us.
Yeah.
Regardless, we talk about stability. That's important. But even more important for this upcoming team specifically is Kerry Coombs' proven track record as a developer of talent. Yeah. Because you're going to have 3 new starters in that secondary next year.
Like the secondary is one of like the main worries people had about Ohio State.
Question mark. Yeah.
Well, I'd say that's not really a question mark anymore. Now that you have Kerry Coombs in there, even though you have young and experienced guys, you have that proven coach who will help them develop, even if it will be rough. The linebackers and defensive line will still be able to pick up and fill in the gaps and prevent any fall off defensively. Overall, I still think Ohio State's going to have one of the top defenses in the country next year. Yeah. Right now, for me, the only question mark is the running backs.
I still feel like there's a question mark at secondary simply because I feel like Kerry Coombs isn't about to just come in here and then all of a sudden these guys are playing just like Jeffrey Okuda and Damon Arnett. I feel like coaching changes are always going to have an effect on the players, and I think it'll take time for these guys to kick into gear. So I think this spring practice and everything is going to be a huge moment for this secondary's position. So I still feel like that's still a question mark. It's not just, hey, Coach Kerry Coombs is here and now everything's fixed.
It's not everything is not fixed. I just think it's less of a question mark to me than the running back situation. Because
one of the things I would compare it to, we're saying there's going to be a lot of new faces in the secondary. That's true, but they're all going to be most of them are third years guys. Yeah. So you're going to have we're obviously Sean Wade, who's a 4th year and the only returning starter. You're going to have almost certainly Josh Proctor at free safety, who's a 3rd-year guy. Look at the guys competing for cornerback. Amir Reap's a 4th year. Seven Banks is a 3rd year. Cam Brown's a 3rd year.
A lot of experience, but
Tyreek Johnson even's a 3rd year. So you've got guys who've been in the program a few years. It's not like you're asking freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomores to start. And it was the same situation with the offensive line this past year. I mean, think about it. You had a whole crop of new starters, but they were 3rd and 4th year guys, or 5th year guys even, and Brandon Bowen. So I think that experience within the program is really going to help the Ohio State secondary. You have a background and a knowledge of what it takes to compete at this level. Now Kerry Coombs can develop, like Hafley did, develop and expose the talent that this set of corners has. Because I think the talent is there, both with whether it's with Reap, Brown, or Banks, or Johnson, whomever it will be. Yeah. And they've all shown that flash.
I have a great feeling that the secondary's room is still not complete just yet. I feel like Ohio State will add somebody from the transfer portal. So that's still something to look out for. I feel like that's kind of the perfect situation right now where you can add a veteran guy who's had playing time somewhere else, just kind of like they do with Jonah Jackson.
The O-line comparisons continues.
Exactly. So I think the transfer portal is a route that Ohio State still may go.
And one thing that we haven't specifically said, even though we've talked about Kerry Coombs' ability to develop guys, he's got the 5 cornerbacks, 5 first-round cornerbacks from 2014 to 2018.
Bradley Roby, Garyon Conley, Marshawn Lattimore,
Denzel Ward, Eli Apple.
Yep.
And that was a streak, actually, that ended the year that Taver Johnson took over the secondary. But then the following year, it'll be back on track this year with Jeff Okuda, obviously, and I think a lot of people think it'll be
next year.
It'll continue with the Sean Wade the following year. But kind of to add to what Brian was saying, like I don't think necessarily that Kerry Coombs being in there just solves all the problems. Yeah. In the sense that there were a couple of Kerry Coombs secondaries that did give up a lot of yards. In 2013, that defense was particularly bad. I think that defense actually gave up more passing yards per game than even the 2018 defense, which is saying a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyone else got anything on Kerry Coombs, or should we?
Well, kind of going off this, I just like Andy's mentioning how the secondary still has a lot of experience in terms of years being in the program, but that's not necessarily the case when you look at like the running back situation.
No,
like,
right.
Like people like Master Teague, Steele Chambers, Marcus Crowley, they're only like sophomores or redshirt freshmen. They don't have
and they're not getting Jahmyr Gibbs.
They are not getting Jahmyr Gibbs.
How sad.
So that's why that's still like the biggest question mark to me. I think the talent is definitely there.
I will say this though. I feel like yes, running back is probably the biggest question mark on the team, but I feel like it won't be as glaring as secondary could be. I feel like running back you can cover it up because of how great Justin Fields is, and
I mean, plus the fact that the Ohio State is still incredibly deep at wide receiver with all the talent they have there. I don't think it's going to be an issue.
We won't notice it as much.
One thing about Ryan Day, and in the time he's been here, both as head coach and offensive coordinator and QB coach, is that he's done a really good job of tailoring the offense to like the weapons he has around him. Yeah. You know, I think if let's say Master Teague is going to be the starter, I think you're going to see maybe like different style like of looks, maybe more of some like more tight runs instead of just running straight at them, instead of like the mid zone runs that like Jake Dobbins excelled at.
I don't think it'll matter who starts honestly for Ohio State at running back, because I can almost guarantee I feel like it'll be a running back by committee type of backfield for Ohio State this season. I don't think they'll rely heavily on any one guy. Master Teague can't do everything. It's not like J.K. Dobbins where this guy got speed, size, and elusiveness, agility, all that. No, like certain guys have their specialties. So I think we'll see a lot of Master Teague, but we'll also see a lot of Marcus Crowley and even Steele Chambers.
All right.
So I think that's all on football. Let's shift over to basketball.
I am excited to see how that works in spring football. That'll be a lot of fun to see in addition to the secondary.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, let's shift to basketball.
Oh, my. Ohio State thought they might be on the right track again after that Nebraska game.
Boy, did they think wrong.
No.
Kind of saw that coming.
I'll let Griffin kick this off because he just wrote an article about how they could win their next 3 games. I'm not so sure. But I'll let him start.
Oh, sorry, I'm just
Are you looking at
We gave him the alley-oop and he's still
Ohio State, they've dropped 5 out of 6 now. They had that one kind of reprieve from their skid against Nebraska, but Nebraska is one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, so it was kind of like it was a little bit of a fluky win, you could say.
6 out of 7, yeah.
Well, they've lost 5 out of 6 right now.
Okay.
And if they lose their next,
you're right.
So that's what I was saying in my article.
Get it right, Andy.
I'm bad. I don't know why I doubted him. That was all me.
They've had 2 other streaks of losing 6 out of 7 games in the last 16 years, with the one being this past year in almost the same exact time frame, which apparently no one understands that in my article as written currently. But
we changed
the other one. They're still confused about it. But then the only other time that happened was in 2003, 2004. It was Jim O'Brien's final year as head coach for Ohio State. So it would be kind of weird if Chris Holtmann had 2 of the worst 7-game stretches in Ohio State history back-to-back years. That would be kind of strange, you know. Even Thad Matta in some of those kind of bad years when he was on the way out, he didn't have a losing streak like of 6 out of 7 losses. But the next 3 games, if Ohio State was going to make a stand to gain a little bit of more traction here in this stretch of the season, it literally has to be in these next 3 games, because after we'll get into what these 3 games are. But after these 3 games, they've got Michigan and Wisconsin back-to-back on the road. And Michigan, they're not in the top 25 anymore, but I think we think that they are still a team that could definitely beat Ohio State. Wisconsin's already beaten Ohio State. Then after those 2 games, they've got 3 out of 4 ranked teams in the Big Ten after that. So that's 6 straight games that are going to be tough. At least 5 out of 6 of those are going to be real tough.
They better figure it out.
This 3, they've got Northwestern, the worst team in the Big Ten. And I think if they don't beat Northwestern, they got huge red flags. And other than that, they've got Minnesota and Indiana, who they've lost to already this season. So you're going to be saying, I mean, that's not a great thing to be playing those teams, but they're getting those guys at home. They played them on the road before, and as I was crunching some numbers today for my article, teams have only won less than 24% of their road games this year. Big Ten teams.
It's crazy.
And they've won like 85% of their games at home.
Plus, as we've mentioned time and time again, it is tough to beat a team a second time. So
yeah. And
we saw that with Ohio State and Penn State.
Yep.
No, that's exactly what that was. Literally a graph in my article was that as Ohio State's last performance against Penn State proved, you can't have one result in a game in a Big Ten season and then expect it to go the same way. Right. In basketball, I mean, you just saw with Penn State, it was a 30-point blowout in Ohio State's favor the first go around. Second game, it was a 24-point blowout or 26-point blowout the other way around. So
24, yeah.
The home floor definitely changes a lot, and I just think, man, if Ohio State, they should win these games, and they really need to because they've got tough roads ahead after that, pretty much. So, I mean,
I don't think anyone's calling for Chris Holman's head or anything like that. I think he's pretty safe in his position. But yeah, I think this Ohio State team needs to step it up big time. It's just kind of unacceptable to go from number 2 in the country to not ranked at all. This basketball team has way too much talent, and they have a great amount of experience and young talent to where this is just kind of unacceptable for them to be losing to teams that they should beat. And, yeah, their Nebraska win at home was good for their confidence and all, but you can't follow it up with a 20-plus point loss to a team that you already beat previously in the season. So they have a lot to prove in these next 3 games, and it could either be a confidence booster to where they get this thing steering back in the right direction, or this whole ship can come crashing down bad, and we can see them potentially in the NIT.
Yeah, they have already lost to both Minnesota and Indiana. I think so. They finally have had back-to-back games with decent offensive output, but then in the latter of the two, you
sacrifice defense.
You sacrifice defense. I think for sure they should beat Northwestern. I think really you need to win these next 3 games to get some sort of semblance back of momentum in your season. Because if you drop it to Minnesota and now you've lost 6 of 7, even if you rebound to beat Northwestern and Indiana, it's like, okay, but who have we really beaten? And now we have to go play Michigan. Yeah. And then go play Wisconsin.
Yeah, both of those are road games too.
Gauntlet after that.
Rutgers, Purdue, Iowa. But
they got Nebraska again though, so
we're looking way ahead. But the
end of the season by then.
It still just all boils down to the guards for me. Penn State can kill you with perimeter scoring, and the guard defense wasn't where it needed to be in that game. So it's been the offense, but now the guards need to account for some. It's all the guard play. Yeah. Can the guards put it together and essentially get this team back to a place where it's going to be competitive for an NCAA tournament berth?
Is there someone you can blame it on?
I wouldn't pin it on any one person. You've got a collective group of guards that have just been inconsistent throughout the season, whether it's on offense or on defense.
I'll say, I don't want to point any fingers at anyone, but I feel like just based on how the season's been going, there's 2 people that stand out to me as underachieving this season, and it's Luther Muhammad and CJ Walker. We had high hopes for Luther Muhammad. He's been experienced. He's already had a lot of starts under his belt, and he's been not doing nearly as well this season. And then you have CJ Walker, who sat an entire season last year, got to practice under the system, and came from Florida State where he had a lot of experience. And he's supposed to be one of the leaders in the backcourt, veteran leaders, and it's not really showing as much. So I know there's a lot of blame to go around throughout this entire team in general, even the coaching staff, but those are 2 places where it's like.
I mean, if we're blaming C.J. Walker, I still think a lot of blame should go to Dwayne Washington too. I think he's been a large reason.
I want to say him as well, but the reason why I'll give him a pass is because of how streaky he's been. He's been really hot at times, but he's also been really cold at times. So it's hard.
It's not even that. The main reason why I give him as much blame as C.J. Walker is just because of the way they've handled the offense and controlled it, just in terms of giving equal looks or more looks to Caleb Wesson. Just Dwayne Washington's just been taking. You look at like games like Wisconsin where he just took so many shots when he shouldn't have. Like he didn't have it that night.
Yeah.
And he didn't adjust. And it's a coaching thing too. It's not just solely on him. But that is one of the main reasons why, Ohio State's offense has just been so out of rhythm, because there's no communication between the guards in terms of who's getting the ball, who's taking the shots, and who's right now is hot and will make the shots. Like people like Caleb Wesson and Kyle Young should be getting way more looks than they are.
I think Kyle Young should be getting a lot more shots. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Let me say this, though. Dwayne Washington is finally coming off of a hot game. He scored 20 points last game. It was a losing effort, but he hit. It was 6 for 10 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3, and that's what is giving me a little bit of hope for these rematches against Indiana and Minnesota. Because if you were paying attention to those games, Dwayne Washington had a total of 0 points combined in both of those original matchups because he was injured in the first game with his rib injury.
What? How many minutes did Dwayne Washington play last game? I guess
26.
Because he didn't start, right?
No, he did not.
Yeah.
He didn't start.
But he got starter minutes.
He had 20 points. I mean, it could be a sign that he shot himself out of his month-long slump. And so I think that's a good sign. I mean, he didn't play against Minnesota, and Ohio State couldn't score very well. Against Indiana, he got benched for almost the entire game. He didn't attempt a shot. I think he had 2 points on free throws. So now you're going to have Dwayne Washington potentially maybe he's got his shooting touch back a little bit since it was his best game since coming back from his injury in the first place. Maybe that's a factor in these two.
Will he get his starting spot back, or is that still like something to look forward to? Have they said anything
about being in the starting lineup?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I haven't been there since I didn't go to the last press conference, which was on Friday. So we'll have one tomorrow, I believe.
We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, if he's on, then definitely feed him.
That's what I'm saying.
But that's
streaky.
That's the thing. It's streaky. But even then, I still think even if Dwayne Washington is on, he shouldn't be taking as many shots as he does. I think it should still be balanced around. I think you have to primarily be feeding Caleb Wesson, and I think feed Kyle Young. Spread the love around a little bit so your offense isn't one-dimensional, because that's the main issue I've had with Ohio State's offense this past month is that no matter who's hot or who's cold, the offense has been one-dimensional. Everyone's known what they've been doing, and it's not been working.
Right.
And I think, as we said, a lot of that comes down to the guards, and specifically like ball handling. Yeah. It's not even just like scoring or missing shots. Ohio State's been having so many turnovers lately. Like, I can't remember the last game they had where they had single-digit amount of turnovers throughout the game. I think you have to go back to the beginning of December for that to happen.
The turnovers, though, I mean, last game they had like 13 or something.
Like it's
not like an insane number. It's like if you're getting up like past like 15, 16, 17, then it's like a real issue. I mean, I know it's been an issue, but I don't think it was a huge thing.
It's not every game, but it's just a consistent thing that disrupts Ohio State's flow offensively. And there's specific games you can look to it. Like the Wisconsin game was a huge example of that. But even then, like I'll go look right now to see if I can find the last time where they had like less than 10 turnovers or 10 turnovers, because it is not something that's been often. And even if it isn't like an egregious thing that like loses the game for them, it still has a major impact, I think.
Right.
So if someone wants to step in and take away the conversation.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
we covered it all.
Got that 3-pack coming up, man.
Yeah. I think the Penn State game when they won and had that huge 106-point performance, I think that's the last time they had under 10 turnovers in the game. They had 9 that game.
Yeah. That was just like an overall just perfect performance.
Yeah. So
by the Buckeyes, we haven't seen one of those in quite a while, but
so their next match.
I don't necessarily anticipate it happening the next 3 games, but I definitely think they should win the games, even if they're tight. And I just think that home boost might just flip it over into the win column for Ohio State.
Minnesota's next, right?
Yep, on Thursday.
All right, well, I think that might be all, right?
Yeah.
Is that all?
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land, and you can tune in next Tuesday for our reaction on if Ohio State has won against Minnesota or not.
Stay tuned for our coverage of the Minnesota game as well. We'll be there live covering the game.
Yep.
So thank you all very much for watching it, and have a great week.
See you next week.
Peace.
Peace out.